true. It's like, I say do your thing, but.
Yeah, I saw it on the news this morning.
Why some people's things are political things.
This morning, you guys were in the story. I guess in Kansas City. Literally a minute later,
That looks good, I think.
Is they found him a minute later, minute after you aired
It
it.
looks like a Rasta man.
Pardon me for a second. I knew Craig, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. What is this story about?
I'm sorry, I feel you. Somebody told me something, I
He
don't
committed
really.
suicide. He shot at 2 officers and they
Okay.
committed suicide last night.
Okay.
He narrowly missed 2
I'm
officers.
sorry, it's not funny, but it was just like, you know, one of those where it's like.
It's a little.
Man, I'll tell you, I forget this story as soon as I walk in. I'm sorry.
I can't for the life of me, well, of course, like I'm only half here, but like, I can't remember what I did yesterday.
Exactly. And they started
Like,
shooting
it's
up
just
there.
like-
They're on the ground.
I work in the kitchen, so I have all the furniture.
Exactly.
Here you go. It all has to be moved back first and organized. That's the kitchen floor and the base of the plan.
You didn't put in shotgun shells, did you?
Can you redo your floors?
I just put polyurethane on it, but I saw it in Alice Pizza down here. It was before I had Mexican stuff.
Mm.
You know, all the time. Keep coming in here, soft. It always looks dirty. You wash it, I would say, it just looks screwed up. So I said,
Natural white.
let me conform, and that's what the product is. The product did not dry for about 2.5 weeks. I spent $280 for a gallon. I thought, this is the shit. I gotta get this, you know. So I get it, and then I have to put it on people, and I have to get fans, that was $90 a night for a couple days. I partied, and people were coming, were still attacking, I'm like, I don't know what else to do. It was, 2 weeks is like enough. So it's still, after all that money, it was like, almost $100. For like, probably everything over there, I get to drive crazy.
Shotgun shells for it,
I
too.
said, screw it. So I went to Home Depot and I said, what do you have? Because I cannot go out and buy another gallon of this stuff to finish off this job. And they gave me stuff for outside, for concrete. Beautiful. And it was 30 something a gallon versus
Well,
280.
that's nice.
You talking about concrete stuff?
It was great.
That's better than
Love it.
how you would do it, man. It's old school.
But okay, but you know
What is it, concrete?
Concrete stuff, it's just clear base. Liquid.
I want to put it on my hardwood floors because my house is 20 years old. I thought of taking a little bit of stain where it's, you know, kind of got, just wipe it down real quickly and then the whole. You know what you're doing. I know, but I really.
You're heading on down.
Everybody ready?
I like the editorial the other day, it said, if you miss Mike Ferguson's, I saw that, it was pretty good. You guys are slacking
Just send
behind the
Mike
door.
an email and see. Yep. So we're gonna take it live. Okay. This is only Rob.
He'll be here in a moment.
Okay, Jeff, will you let everyone know that your insurance will be here momentarily? And we are feeding back to you the commodity.
Are you guys rolling on the bridge?
Like Rusty the Bailiff?
All right, it's time to come down.
No, this is the trained cops.
Thank you.
Or that, we still got it.
It's like riding a bicycle.
You're not gonna let them in, are you? No, stand there, hold the door shut. Oh.
Did I move?
They shouldn't beat me down. They were taking the stairs and I took the elevator.
No.
Maybe they got off on the wrong floor.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being with us. I told you last night at a very late hour I would be back to brief you this morning. But let's start with Halloween night at approximately 6 o'clock. A man murdered his wife. Then he committed suicide with a handgun. He left 3 beautiful children, 2 of them 7 and 11 years old, without either parent. Then we fast forward just a few hours to yesterday morning, whereby a man who had just gotten a divorce from his wife went to her house with a .357 handgun, waited outside the garage for her to leave for work, started a vicious fight with her. They fought in the garage. They fought in the driveway. They're fighting over the gun. They fight into the road, into an intersection 1 block from Mulberry High School. When a school teacher going to school sees them fighting and stops to say, "Hey, what are y'all doing? Do you need some help?" Well, she about that time sees the firearm and the teacher starts to leave. The woman breaks free from her husband and runs toward the teacher in her vehicle, and he kills himself. That left 2 more children without a father. Now we're up to 5. Last night, we received a call from Pinellas County, who had received a call from a lady who said, "There's a domestic disturbance and I hear noises. I think they're fighting. They're screaming and hollering in Polk County." She lives in Pinellas County and she's called by her daughter. Deputies are sent to the scene. Our 2 deputies are Jake Coggins, who's 22 years of age, and Paul Wright. I think Paul is 41. They go to the scene for a well-being check and to respond to a domestic disturbance. They arrive at the house and they have a conversation. Deputy Coggins is at the front door talking to the man who refuses to come out and refuses to open the door. And Deputy Coggins says, "Look, I simply want to know that everybody's okay here. Are you all right? Is your wife all right? Are there any children? Are they all right?" So there's a conversation for a period of time. While this conversation is occurring, Deputy Wright sees a young lady who turns out to be 16 and one of the daughters ride up on a bicycle. So he goes out to talk to her and she turns and tries to pedal away from him. So he chases her down and catches her. And another young man who is there rides off on his bicycle. Have no idea who he is. While this is occurring, and our Deputy Coggins says, "Look, we've got your daughter out front. You've got my daughter?" "Yes, your daughter's here. Where's your wife?" And they're carrying on this conversation. He still won't open the door. At that time, Deputy Coggins says there's an explosion and a shot through the window to his right. Immediately, there's another gunshot through the door to his left. He takes cover along with Deputy Wright. They're trying to light up the house now to see what's going on the outside of the house. Their mobile home, there's not much light. They're trying to protect the 16-year-old girl. The guy shoots at him another volley of rounds, and then another volley of rounds. He shoots at our deputies with what we know now as a shotgun at least 6 times. The 7th shot we hear is a muffled shot, and as the detective or the deputies describe to the detectives later on, it is a muffled shot, and we don't hear the projectiles striking the trees around us, the fence around us, or the other mobile homes around us. I mean, this guy is all out with a shotgun shooting. Of course, we send legions of deputies and a SWAT team, and about 3.5 hours later, we find Michael Manning, who's 43 years of age, deceased from a shotgun wound, self-inflicted shotgun wound to the head. So let me talk about the 3 suicides, and then we'll get to the details of this. What I would like the community to understand is in 25 hours from Halloween evening till the next day, right at 25 hours, 7 children lost either a family member or both family members to suicide. All of these instances were domestic violence related. In addition to that, during one of the domestic violence events, deputies were shot at 6 times. And if you ever wonder if your prayers for your deputies and your officers work, last night was an example. It was by the grace of God, with him shooting 6 different times and there being evidence of gunshots all over. And they missed every time. It was a horrible, horrible day. But let me take this a step further. Michael Manning's wife, Jennifer, who's 44, calls her mother, and this is from the detectives after we've started to sort this out, and I'm not sure we're to the bottom of all this. Some of this certainly could be subject to change or maybe colored by the way they colored the story. Jennifer and her husband are arguing. So she calls her mother, and her mother hears all of this commotion. And that's when she obviously calls Pinellas. Pinellas calls us, and we show up. Jennifer Manning, the wife, leaves her phone at the house. That's why when we're pinging the phone, it's still at the house. She goes to the store shopping. She buys chicken for dinner. She just like, she's over it. She goes to the store shopping. She buys chicken for dinner. The 2 kids ride off on the bicycles. And when Jennifer comes back, she can't get to her house because there's this huge police presence for something happening in the neighborhood. She never ever ties the fact that we had a family disturbance to our police response. She never knew that there was a shooting at her house. So when she tries to come in, if you will, the one direction on Skyview to get to her house, she goes, I can't get there. She drives all around, probably about a 2 or 3 mile loop, to try to come in from the other side. And she says, darn, they've got it blocked off here as well. So she goes all the way back around to the area of Crystal Lake, pulls into a parking lot where she's waiting so she can get back into her house. While this wait is protracted, she goes to sleep. Did you hear me? We found her sleeping in the car. We think she's inside, either being held hostage or dead. She's a mile away, maybe a half mile away, sleeping in the car. The 2 children where we grabbed the girl, it's about dinner time. So they're coming back to the house. And that's when we grabbed the girl. The other kid, who we now know was her brother, was fleeing from us. Now you've got to understand, I'm putting you in the middle of all this. Deputies are shot at 6 times. We've got the girl. Now we're trying to talk to the girl. She won't talk to us. I know my constitutional rights. I got a Fifth Amendment right not to talk to you. We go, look, you're not in trouble. Your daddy's in there shooting at the cops. We just need to know where your mama is. I'm not talking to you. So the kids won't cooperate. When we catch mama, she won't tell us anything until finally we said, oh, by the way, he shot himself. And then they started giving us some information. But here's the information. The wife says, maybe we argue and fight once a quarter. The daughter says, my mama and daddy never argue. There's never domestic problems. The neighbors are saying, oh, they argue over there every day. But had Jennifer not called her mama and scared her mama, who was thinking she was being beat and was in danger, had she not made that phone call, she'd have gone to the store, calmly bought her dinner, let everybody calm down. She'd have come back to the store, from the store like she was trying to. The kids said, dinner time. They'd have come home like they should have. They'd eaten chicken and gone to bed. Instead, he chooses to shoot at the cops 6 times last night instead of opening the door and saying, hey, man, we had words. My wife's at the store buying chicken. If you'll like chill out here a minute. She'll be back. Kids would have rode up. We'd ask the kids, what's going on? Oh, nothing. Mom and Dad had an argument. We don't see any evidence at this point in our investigation where he hit her, even though that's what the sounds were like to Mom over the telephone in Pinellas County. When we got inside, what did we find? Beside Michael Manning, deceased from a self-inflicted gunshot wound, we found 2 shotguns and about 1,700 rounds of birdshot. Now we have 2 children without a father. We have a wife that's devastated. And if I can circle around to end where I began, if you look to see our first homicide-suicide, they'd been married 21 years. Our next event, they had been married 25 years. And the third event, they were married 18 years. These were all people who were not kids, not real old, had been in long-term relationships, and we ended up with 3 suicides, one of which was a murder-suicide in a period of about 25 hours. If you're having domestic problems, get help. Because we don't want you to die. We don't want your wife or husband to die. We don't want your children orphaned or dying. I mean, this guy could have killed his own daughter while he was shooting at us. And we certainly don't want to get shot and die. When he was shooting at us, we were with his daughter. So we talked to the mother-in-law, and she said, well, he doesn't really like the government, and he really doesn't like the cops. Well, that's not a news flash for us. He shot at us 6 times. They were homeschooling the kids, but they didn't follow the homeschool procedures, nor were they properly registered with the school board, but supposedly they were homeschooling the kids. And none of them wanted to cooperate with us. He wouldn't talk to us except for through the door. When we found the mother asleep, she didn't want to cooperate with us. The 16-year-old while this emergency is in place, is going, well, I'm not talking to you. And the 14-year-old ran off to a buddy's house where we later found him about 2 o'clock this morning. The whole night was bizarre. But most importantly, our deputies are safe. And most tragically, we've got 3 sets of children that are left without a parent or parents. Are there any questions? Thank you very much.